Let's bring in the political panel now. With me here in the studio, Republican strategist Dee Dee Benke. Good morning, Dee Dee. Good to have you here, or good afternoon, I guess it is here on the East Coast now. And from our D.C. bureau, Ryan Clayton, Democratic strategist and founder of 100proofpolitics.com. I always enjoy anything that is 100 proof. Yeah, so let's... Oh, he was there, now he's gone. There's an empty chair where he was, so let's start... Oh, we do have him. Ryan, are you there? Oh, we're just looking at the wrong studio. There you are. Ryan Clayton, good morning. I can't hear you, but let's, while they fix that, let me go to Dee Dee. Dee Dee, Romney is imploding or just having the natural...
You mean Perry?
Perry is imploding or having the natural problems of anybody who's got front-runner status for a while?
It's never good when David Letterman's top 10 is that the signs that Perry's campaign is in trouble. I mean, that's what it was last night. I happened to catch it. It was like the top 10 signs that Rick Perry's campaign is in trouble. When they're laughing at you, it is not a good night. So he started with Bachmann, and now it's Perry. And in fact, the number one reason was that, Bachmann also thinks that Perry is crazy or nuts or something like that. So anyway, his performances have just been awful. They really have been. For him to recover, Carl Cameron's right. It's going to be tough. You hate to be hard on him, but we got to call it like it is. He really needs to turn things around because it's not going well. He is imploding. He's got to stop that. I don't know how he's going to do it, but things have to stop. He has to stop the bleeding. It's not good.
Ryan, as you as a Democrat watch Perry slipping a little and Romney appearing to get back his front-runner status, I assume you are more worried because Romney, you would believe, is the more electable candidate on a national stage.
Well, Rick Perry's got real problems. You know, he's a former Democrat who endorsed Al Gore for president, so it's going to be tough enough for him to get through a Republican primary on his own. And then, you know, Mitt Romney's got his own problems, too. He was 47th in job creation when he was governor of Massachusetts, and then he endorsed, essentially passed, test-marketed Obamacare in Massachusetts, which the Tea Party is never going to forgive him for. So both of these candidates really, I think, have severe problems that they maybe not be able to overcome in the, at least in a Republican primary.
Dee Dee, we're asking our viewers today on the FoxNews.com live question of the day poll, does electability play a factor in picking a presidential candidate? They're voting on that right now. Does it and should it play a role? Do you have to, just through common sense, think who is going to perform better on the national stage?
I actually think sometimes with ideologues it won't. It's like, you know what, forget it. They're not good enough, they're not conservative enough. But because Barack Obama is so bad and so terrible for our country that they're going to be like, you know what, I might have to hold my nose and think Romney's a little too moderate for me, but anybody but Barack Obama. So ABO, I think, yeah, that might play a little bit more this time because his president's just so bad.
Ryan, what do you think of the prospects of Chris Christie of New Jersey getting into the race? And if he were to get in, would he be a strong candidate against President Obama, or would he be a smart pick for anybody perhaps as a running mate on the Republican side?
Well, Chris Christie is the new flavor of the month on the Republican side of the aisle. They're the one that everybody's excited about getting in the race. Just like Rick Perry, everybody was excited on the Republicans about getting in the race. Just like they're excited about Sarah Palin or Michelle Bachmann. You know, it's just the new flavor of the month. And the Republican primary voters just keep going from, you know, one candidate to the next, somebody they can get excited about. Because the one candidate that nobody in the Republican primary can get excited about is the inevitable Republican nominee. And that's Mitt Romney.
It seems to be a fair point, Dee Dee. This constant search for somebody else, the savior of the party, would appear at least to indicate that the Republicans are worried about the slate of candidates they currently have to choose from.
I agree with that. It is. It's sort of like, hey, he's steady Eddie, but he's still there. I mean, he may be vanilla, but Obama's liverwurst. I mean, so, you know, I think people are going to go with steady Eddie in the end more than likely. And yeah, it is the flavor of the month. I mean, it's interesting. It's exciting with new media and social media. There's always something new every day, so I think that's fair enough, and it'll make our candidates better. But Romney is doing a good job. I mean, he is holding up. So, and I have to say that my complaint about Romney early on was the complaint that it's like, you know, not too excited about him, but he stepped up to it. Perry has made him a much better candidate. He's done very well in the debates lately.
Ryan, when we get to next summer, it now looks as though we might be getting a decision from the Supreme Court on the legality of President Obama's health care reform bill. How critical will that be in putting health care front and center in those last few months of a campaign? Does that worry you?
I mean, if the Supreme Court overturns the Affordable Health Care Act, the thing I'm worried about is the American people throughout the country and actually the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. I'm not worried about the next election. You know, this is a law that gave millions more Americans health care. And look, if an American's sick, they should be able to see a doctor. It's just that simple. And that's what this law does. It says everybody in America can now go see a doctor. If they're sick, if their kid's sick, if their neighbor's sick, everybody can see a doctor. And that's a great thing. If the Supreme Court steps in, that just proves that this high court has finally become completely composed of radical legislators from the bench who don't think that their job is to apply the Constitution to the law. They think their job is to legislate from the bench, and they're dead wrong on that.
Didi, that's the Supreme Court you're talking about. I don't know if they're really radical.
How good or bad is it, though, for the Republicans to have that issue front and center on a stage like the Supreme Court next summer?
Well, it doesn't help Obama. It does help the Republican Party. And I know in my home state, we don't want to be told. I mean, I understand, you know, sick people should be able to see doctors, but they should be able to see doctors they want, should be able to pay what they want, should be able to decide what they want. I don't want Michelle Obama telling me I can't have my free breadsticks, and I don't want Barack Obama telling me what doctor that I have to go see and what I have to pay and what's mandated. That's not right.
With all due fairness, Didi, that is not what this law does. What this law does is guarantee that more Americans can have access to health care, just like you and I do, you know? And I don't think that that's a bad thing. Why is that such a bad thing? Why do we want to go back to the status quo of the way things were when people couldn't even get in to see a doctor?
Why do
Republicans in Washington want that? I just think that that's completely divorced from what the majority of Americans want throughout America. They want their neighbors to be able to go see a doctor. In my home state, where I'm from, I don't want anybody having to sit there with a broken leg and not be able to see a doctor, have a toothache or a cavity, and they can't go see a dentist.
He had cancer,
you know, especially
if he had
children.
Obamacare, he probably would have died. If he had been in Canada, he probably would have died because he was able to get the health care that he wanted and he needed. He survived.
Well, wake up. There's millions of Americans who do die because they don't have health care throughout America, and I don't think that candidate is any more important than any of them.
That's the kind of health care they have. That's very bad health care there and in Europe. That's why they come to the United States for health care. I'd like to keep it the way it is.
All right, let's go on from health care to jobs. Ryan, President in Denver today on this tour selling the American Jobs Act. It still seems unlikely we're going to get much action from Congress on this. Is this just a political maneuvering and it's part of the campaign now? Just go around the country blaming the Republicans. Is he actually really trying to get anything done, or is this just all part of politics?
Well, Obama's putting blame where blame is due, and it falls on the Republicans in the House and especially the Tea Party caucus, who crashed our economy and now don't want to do their job and pass the American Jobs Act, which is going to put 2 million more Americans back to work. What the Republicans in the House want to do is create job-killing cuts that are going to take 7 million jobs out of our Congress, or out of our country. They want to put more gridlock into Congress, and they're even threatening to shut down the government again. If they think that's what Americans want, I would encourage them all to go back to their districts and talk to people in their districts, citizens of this country, who just want Congress to do their job, putting the rest of us back to work in America.
Didi, Congress isn't doing its job?
Well, that's why so many Tea Party members were voted in, was because people were unhappy with what was going on. And we do not, this jobs bill, it's hilarious. It's not a jobs bill. It's a second stimulus. And people don't want it. They're going to vote it down. You know, it'd be really great to have that slender money for the FEMA money, because we've got people that are suffering from Hurricane Irene, and the money was wasted on all this crazy stimulus. Wasted money. Solyndra was a joke. And it's not funny because we've got people suffering now. We're not going to be able to.
So where's the Republican alternative plan, Didi?
Well, first and foremost, we have got to unelect Barack Obama, because he is the biggest problem this country has ever seen.
The American people want jobs before next November.
Well, that's
so
true.
where's the Republican
problem right
plan?
there.
Go on, Ryan.
That's the problem right there. Republicans are more committed to hurting President Obama than they are to putting Americans back to work.
Let Ryan finish.
Problem.
Go ahead.
And that is the core of the problem in this country right now, is that Republicans in Washington think that politics is more important than the future of our country. They think one election in 2012 should take precedence over guaranteeing the prosperity of our country for the next 40 or 50 years. And they need to wake up or grow up, or both.
Didi?
Well, that sounds really great, Ryan, but the bottom line is we have a terrible economy right now because we have a president who doesn't get economics. All he wants to do is throw stimulus money at the problem. It's not working. We are in the worst shape than we've been in perhaps forever. Maybe the Depression, but we're at a second depression at this point in time. I mean, it is a total, complete disaster, and it all is where the buck stops. Barack Obama. So for you
and
to
who
say
started that? Who started those problems? Under your former boss, Karl Rove, and President George W. Bush. You created 50% of the debt in this country. 50% of the $1 trillion deficit in this country was created by President George W. Bush.
Blame Bush. Are you done?
All right, now we've got to that point, so that's where we call it quits here. Ryan Clayton, Democratic strategist and founder of the fabulously named 100proofpolitics.com. Thank you very much for being with us, Ryan. Great to hear your thoughts. And Didi Benke, Republican strategist here in the studio. Great to have you too.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break.